A new report has painted a gloomy picture of the fate of asylum seekers in the UK. British media say the UK is using the European Union rules to return refugees from Syria and other countries to Eastern European states. The refugees say they have gone through painful ordeals as they traveled through the continent. Some of the asylum seekers say they were held in cages in Hungary, waterboarded and handcuffed to beds by detention centre guards in Romania and beaten in Bulgaria. According to the EU rules, asylum seekers must apply in their first European country of entry. Well, for more on this story, we go live to Sydney in Australia to talk to Ian Rintoul from the Refugee Action Coalition. Mr. Rintoul, thank you so much for being with us. So some harrowing tales indeed of the plight of these refugees. Not only have they been driven out from their homes and their countries by war and conflict, now they have to go through such abuse as well in a European country and in several European countries.
Yeah, it's a really disgraceful decision, and trying to use the Dublin Agreement that the European countries have to force people back to places that we now know are very routinely, mistreating people is really a disgraceful, decision on the part, on Britain's part. So I'm hoping that the, legal action in Britain can actually prevent this, happening. It's an entirely, opportunistic decision by Britain, and it overrides the, the human rights and the commitments that the British government should have to protect people from Syria.
It's not just the UK. I mean, the UK is one part of the story, Mr. Rintoul, that, well, it is sending back these refugees. But again, we have those countries in Eastern Europe, as we had in the story, Hungary, where refugees have been held in cages. We had Romania, where they have been waterboarded and handcuffed to beds. We had Bulgaria, where refugees have been beaten. So these refugees are going through severe physical abuse, in some cases sexual abuse, in European countries. Isn't that illegal?
It should be illegal, but unfortunately, I think the UK government is going to try and use the Dublin Agreement to say that it's got the right to send people back, even though they are being, mistreated. But I think the Dublin Agreement is long past its use-by date. We know, as the story outlines, we know that the people in Bulgaria and Hungary and other places are now routinely subject to severe mistreatment. Asylum seekers there. Hungary is now establishing punitive closed, detention centres on top of the stories that we've heard about the torture and the waterboarding and the mistreatment that people have suffered even on their way through Europe. The Dublin Agreement, should be torn up. Britain should be upholding its commitments under the Refugee Convention to provide protection to asylum seekers, to ensure that their claims are properly assessed. But to use the Dublin Agreement to try and send people out of the UK back to European countries where people are mistreated is a fundamental violation of the asylum seekers' human rights.
And isn't there any world body to hold these countries accountable for what they are doing to these refugees?
Well, tragically, I mean, maybe they can appeal. The best chance is going to be in the UK itself. I think the European Court is likely to uphold the Dublin Agreement, and beyond that, there is no, world accountability. As we've seen in Australia over and over again, we've attempted to find, legal remedies. We've gone to the International Criminal Court in a number of different ways, trying to find some way of dealing with the way the Australian government uses offshore processing centres to mistreat people and to deny their rights, to protection. We haven't found a legal remedy here to do that, and I suspect the same thing is going to, happen as far as Europe is concerned. It's going to be a matter of whether the UK courts, are willing to find that the commitment that they have to human rights is in some ways going to be able to override the question of the Dublin Agreement and the right that it seems to have under that agreement to send people back, regardless of whether they're going to face mistreatment, or torture. I mean, I know that the Home Office in the UK is saying that they're entitled to believe that asylum seekers are going to be properly treated, whereas it's very well established they're not properly treated in many countries, and they won't be being properly treated in the UK either if they are subject to deportation back to those countries.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Rintoul. Ian Rintoul from the Refugee Action Coalition, joining us live from Sydney, Australia. Thank you very much.